The year I successfully won over the devoted second male lead, I was 28, I had lost 2 children, and my health was already in decline. Williams buried his face in the nape of my neck and whispered, "From now on, I will only be good to you." I believed him. He was always the kind of person who would wish someone to live if he loved them and wish them to die if he hated them. When the emotionless voice of the system in my mind announced, "Favorability 100%, congratulations, host." On successfully completing the conquest, I numbly moved my fingers, my eyes stared vacantly into the courtyard. There stood a dying crabapple tree. It was planted by Williams himself, without any experience in planting trees. He planted it too shallowly, and within just a month, the leaves began to wilt. Not receiving a response, he grew somewhat uneasy. The hand around my waist tightened slightly, and he repeated, "You have to say you believe me." As always, I was completely obedient to him. My voice was gentle, as if filled with boundless tolerance. "I believe you." He was finally satisfied and happily began describing his experiences on this trip to the south of the Yangtze River. I grew tired of listening and casually asked, "Who did you go with?" His relaxed expression froze. I watched coldly, suddenly feeling amused, and then actually laughed out loud. "I know, it's Jennifer, the female protagonist of this novel, the white moonlight that Williams has been longing for years. Even willing to sacrifice his own flesh and blood to protect." The courtyard was completely silent, but I seemed oblivious, lowering my head to stuff a piece of pastry into my mouth. After the second miscarriage, I became very sensitive to the cold. Whenever I felt even the slightest hint of hunger, my whole body would grow cold, so I developed the habit of carrying snacks with me at all times. In the past, Williams often disapproved of me because I would eat snacks in public. Regardless of the occasion, now, he stood before me at a loss, his face pale, eagerly asking, "What can I do?" I chewed with difficulty, and only after swallowing with effort did I say, "Go buy me a mohole." By the kind of mohole that I took a fancy to at first sight when I was 17, but you gave to someone else. His eyes gradually lit up, as if thinking this was my way of showing goodwill. Before turning to leave, he suddenly looked back to confirm. "Will you still be here waiting for me when I return?" I shook my head. Before his expression could turn tense, I leisurely added, "I'm a bit tired and might go inside to take a short nap." Only then did he set aside his doubts, smiled again, and strode out the door. He believed it so easily. It's no wonder, just like before, every time he turned around, he could see me right behind him, whether it was staying with him on the battlefield, facing life and death together, or when others bullied him before he became a powerful minister, she firmly stood by his side, sharing both joys and hardships. This time, he was also extremely confident. As soon as the figure completely disappeared from sight, I immediately asked the system, "When can I leave?" It quickly replied, "You came from Hawaii State, so naturally you must return to Hawaii State, host. You've worked hard." I shook my head. "You've had it even harder. There is no second strategist more clumsy than me. I came to this world at 16, spent 12 years with the one I was meant to win over, and gave all my sincerity. The original time limit for the mission was repeatedly extended from 5 years. Every time the penalty for failing the mission was announced, the system took the fall for me. "Why are you so good to me?" I once asked in confusion. The system remained silent for a long time before replying in the same cold voice, "You're still too young. This deal is unfair to you. I am not a professional strategist. I came to this world to save someone's life. As long as the strategy succeeds, there will be enough points and money to save the person I want to save. But when I first received this mission, I was only 16 years old. I took a desperate gamble and came to this world, only to see Williams in a state of despair at first glance. That year, he was 15 years old, filthy and lying in the mud pit, covered in vegetable leaves. His eyes were numb and empty, like a little dog that had been abandoned. The system promptly said, "This is Williams, the devoted second male lead of this world, with a paranoid and suspicious nature, originally deeply loved the female lead, but ultimately committed suicide on the eve of her wedding. Your task is to accompany him as he grows up, make him fall in love with you, and change his predetermined death ending." I tugged at my sleeve, feeling a bit nervous. I only heard the system let out what seemed like a sigh. "You're still young, no need to rush for now." I nodded, giving myself a little pep talk. Then I crouched down, tilted my head, and finally got a clear look at his face beneath the mud, jade-like purity and ice-like flesh, with a lofty and unyielding character. I froze for a moment, then I heard my own trembling voice asking, "It's almost dark. Are you cold?" Williams let me look. The gaze filled with lifelessness flickered slightly, but there was no response, the system promptly reminded. The female lead's family has just been convicted and demoted, and her parents no longer allow her to associate with Williams. Now, he is homeless and has just been bullied by the children in the alley. I nodded again. In this world, my parents and older brother are defending the border, and only my grandmother, who practices Buddhism, remains at home. If Williams lies here all night, he will surely die. Come home with me, I said cautiously. Winter is coming soon. It's a bit cold. Back then, I was strong and healthy, not afraid of the cold, and my body was warm like a furnace. When I forcibly reached out and grabbed that hand, I shivered from the cold. Fortunately, he didn't refuse. I helped him up and brought him home. I gave him hot water, food, and clean clothes. After a long while of effort, when he appeared neatly before me, completely revealing that face as beautiful as peach and plum blossoms, I was stunned once again. My heart skipped a beat. He stood before me and asked in a low voice, "Why are you so good to me?" I thought for a long time and finally said, "I am the one who came for you." I didn't lie to him, but Williams didn't believe me. Only I know that ever since I first laid eyes on him, everything I've done has come from the heart. He didn't believe that I hired a tutor and a martial arts master for him simply because I wanted him to have the freedom to choose his own path. Not to the extent of losing a hand on the battlefield due to poor skills, as in the original story. Unlike other generals who came from noble families and were well educated, he was barely literate and could only serve as the emperor's dirtiest tool, after losing his usefulness. He died alone outside the wall of the one he loved, covering his severed arm, nor did he believe that when I rushed out during his first outing, lifting my skirt and arguing with those well-dressed children without regard for my image, I was genuinely heartbroken for him. I no longer believe in the chicken soup after meals or the porridge in the morning. They are merely meant to nourish his already depleted body. I know he keeps a silver needle hidden, never letting it leave his side for a moment. I also know he has personally written countless IOUs. He doesn't want to owe me anything, so he coldly treats all my kindness as an investment that requires repayment. I feel a bit sad, but I don't know when it started. He gradually began to smile at me. Sometimes he would even come to play chess with me. I regained my energy. Winter passed in the blink of an eye. I pointed to the crabapple tree in the yard and said to him, "I love the fruit of the crabapple tree the most." He smiled gently and replied softly, "Peonies are lovely too." While strolling through the market together, I spotted a moheel at first glance. It was the Dragon Boat Festival, and the crowd was so dense that I could only watch as that little stall drifted further and further away. He carefully guided me forward while asking in confusion, "Would a woman really like such a strange-looking thing?" I answered without hesitation, "Of course." I had only heard about it before but had never seen it with my own eyes. Yet, in the end, we didn't manage to buy it. As time passed, the vendor never came back, and I gradually forgot about it. Everything was originally unbelievably perfect, until the day I went to the bookstore to personally select books for his upcoming civil service examination, only to be caught in a sudden downpour. Seeing that it was almost dark, I grew increasingly anxious, standing at the entrance of the bookstore. Anxiously gazing toward the intersection, the maid Lucy volunteered to brave the rain and go home to call a carriage for me, but she had just recovered from a cold. How could I bear to let her? Amid our back and forth bickering, a figure quietly appeared in the direction I was staring, tall and graceful, holding an umbrella in one hand. He hurriedly approached. I recognized at a glance that the blue garment was made from fabric I had personally chosen, amid Lucy's silent snickering. My face gradually turned red. I was just about to speak to Williams, who was already close at hand. The next moment, however, he walked straight ahead without glancing aside, his face filled with worry as he quickened his pace. He didn't even glance in my direction, almost brushing past me. He hurried up to the second floor, which was not open to outsiders. The heavy rain continued to fall, yet an indescribable silence hung in the air. It took Lucy a long time to react. "Young Master Wei didn't come to pick us up." Before I could answer, she gasped and whispered, "No wonder he only brought one umbrella." In the eyes of the servants at home, he was the one I had chosen for myself as my beloved. In the current open-minded atmosphere, not only do men take concubines, but noble women also often keep male companions. The family is used to this kind of scene. In that moment, not only was I caught off guard, but Lucy was also at a loss. I led her back into the shadows. Before long, Williams came down the stairs side by side with a woman wearing a veiled hat. The two of them opened an umbrella and walked together into the rain. It was the same direction they had come from. Lucy gritted her teeth a few times before finally forcing out the words. How could he do this? I had no idea. He simply handed the book in his hand to Lucy, feeling momentarily lost. Finally, it was because I didn't go to have dinner with my grandmother as promised tonight that everyone in the family realized I hadn't returned yet. The carriage came to pick me up just as I finished talking with the system. What is their relationship? I asked. They are not a couple, the system replied. Jennifer has no romantic feelings for Williams. I breathed a sigh of relief. My chest still felt heavy. After returning home, Williams indeed did not come back all night. I sat in the yard waiting for him early in the morning. When he finally walked in with his familiar smile, I spoke softly. Is there anything you need to say to me? His originally gentle expression froze for a moment. A moment later, he said with a calm expression, is it about me not returning last night? I shook my head. You shouldn't have hidden someone in my family's villa. He was completely stunned. My first reaction was to say sharply, you're following me. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Williams, she is the daughter of a disgraced official. She should be in the Northwest, not in Hawaii State. Upon hearing this, his expression instantly returned to the cold indifference of our first meeting. I was taken aback for a moment, feeling somewhat at a loss. He was the first to speak. This matter is my fault, but what's between you and me? I hope you won't involve her. My heart instantly turned cold. Nearly a year of being together. Months of meticulous care. In front of him, it still couldn't compare to a single strand of Jennifer's hair. I want to ask him, if the news of secretly harboring the daughter of a disgraced official were to be exposed, does he know that my parents and brother would be implicated, suspected, and even lose everything they have now, even though this identity was fabricated out of thin air by the system for me? As I look at the living people around me, I can't possibly see them as just a few cold lines of text, but seeing William's reaction, I knew that compared to Jennifer, all of this was unimportant to him. In the end, I only said, send her away, Williams, I won't allow her to bring trouble to the White family. Before he left, he emphasized again, Luna, I'm grateful that you took me in. I owe you, and I will repay every bit of it. But you can't take your anger out on Jennifer. I was so angry that I laughed, and for the first time, I lost my temper. Get out of here. The moment I said those words, it suddenly occurred to me that I shouldn't have liked him in the first place. He was just a character in a book, a person who loves no one but the female lead. The main system chose me because it knew that ordinary strategists could no longer save him from his inevitable fate. Only a girl like me, who has never been in love, could exchange sincerity for sincerity and seize a glimmer of hope for success. The sky gradually darkened, and rain began to fall once again. I sat on the couch with my knees hugged to my chest, suddenly feeling an overwhelming sense of loneliness. If he hadn't come back after dropping Jennifer off, perhaps my strategy would have truly failed, with no chance of success left, because originally, I had no intention of continuing to give my true heart. Just a few days later, the Hu people suddenly invaded the border, and the war at the frontier became critical. Both my parents and elder brother went to the battlefield. When my grandmother received the news, she took 3 deep, cold breaths, tears streaming down her face. Clutching her chest, she murmured, I have been so devout all my life, yet in my old age, must I witness my children and grandchildren return to the battlefield? I tightly held her hand, unsure of how to comfort her. Her hoarse voice sounded again. If only we could go to Ueha Mountain outside the city to pray for peace. I quickly responded, Grandmother, I will go. A long time later, she finally calmed down, picked up her prayer beads again, and hesitated. But you, a young woman, I spoke softly, they are my family too. Even though we've never met, they still care for me. In the real world, I am an orphan. I have never felt the warmth of family care, but after coming here, every month in the middle of the month, jewelry and toys from the western regions, along with most of their salaries, are sent from the borderlands. The letters were written in the handwriting of 3 different people, each time stuffing the envelope until it was bulging. Every word was sincere, wishing only for my peace and happiness. There is nothing I can do for them, such a small matter, and you still want to refuse. But on the way back, a group of mountain bandits suddenly charged down from the hills. They sneered a few times. Your father and brother meddled in others' business back then. They were just passing through on their march. I didn't even ask them for toll money, yet they insisted on bringing troops to burn down my stronghold. Young lady, if you want to blame someone, blame your father and brother for making enemies with me. Now, you can't even save yourself. I had only brought a few servants, all inexperienced in such matters, and in no time, we were completely surrounded. Just as the bandit grabbed me by the collar, I had already gripped the dagger at my waist. Almost simultaneously, a horse charged through the crowd. The bandit leader was distracted for only a moment before a blade struck his neck from behind. Blood sprayed out, warm and thick, covering my face. I was trembling all over, my face pale. I had never seen such a scene, not even on television. Only then did I realize and follow the light with my gaze. It was Williams, who had returned, covered in dust. Wearing a blue robe, with a face as beautiful as a woman's. It's me, miss, he said. The bandits were numerous and powerful, and in the end, even though he used all his skills, he still suffered severe injuries. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the servant who had sneaked back to the city brought people from the government office. Williams closed his eyes, his lips trembling slightly as he whispered, I'm sorry. Whether it was for his harsh words that day or for the fright he had caused today, no one could say. Tears streamed down my face as I desperately tried to cover his bleeding wound. The system, unable to bear it any longer, spoke up despite its usual policy of non-interference with strategists. It didn't hit any vital points. He won't die, he's the second male lead. How could he die so easily? Only then did I feel slightly relieved. After this incident, I stopped dwelling on the past. Once he recovered from his injuries, we returned to how we used to be. The smile on William's face became much more genuine. The unrest at the border had been quelled, and he had also passed the imperial examination. Just 2 months before he was to leave for the capital to take the final imperial exams, his father and brother suddenly sent a letter, saying they would return to J City to establish their residence, now, with 3 generals in the White family. It was only under the emperor's watchful eye that he could feel at ease. From then on, I left Y State, where I had stayed for 3 years. Williams comforted me, saying, we will return one day. But he was wrong. None of us knew that Jennifer's father and brother had made great contributions in defending against the enemy and had now been promoted to J City. Moreover, she had fallen for someone who stood high above the clouds. The years in J City were a nightmare that wasn't quite painful, yet intricately woven, deeply entangling me. After Williams reunited with Jennifer, he repeatedly went to see her alone, disregarding the engagement our parents had arranged for us. She had so many seemingly reasonable excuses. Today she was sick, tomorrow she had been exiled for years and lacked presentable clothes and jewelry, or perhaps, she was schemed against by a girl who, like her, had a crush on Prince Chandler. Every time, Williams would go to her side without hesitation. At first, he could still calmly explain to me, she saved me, Luna. If it weren't for her, I would have been sold into the Southern Breeze house when I was 5 years old. I wouldn't be the clean, respectable, and well-known Williams you see before you now. I suppressed the pain in my heart and tried to speak gently. But that's no reason for you to leave your fiancée in the middle of the night to go see her. He looked utterly disbelieving. How can you think of us that way? Later, I thought back to these arguments. Only then did I realize that he just had a face that was far too captivating. But in reality, every expression of irritation directed at me was utterly detestable, especially that time when he was so furious. After he finished talking about how difficult things were for Jennifer, I responded in a heated tone, questioning him, doesn't she know you have a fiancé? Does your life-saving favor have to be repaid with a lifetime of entanglement and ambiguous behavior? As the words fell, and then he slapped me, my head tilted slightly to the side, and I froze on the spot. He raised his still trembling hand, gritted his teeth, and said coldly, Jennifer doesn't know I have a fiancé. She's not that kind of person. I blinked, and tears fell with the motion. By the time I looked up again, he was already gone. The next day, my brother dragged him, covered in wounds, to apologize to me. If you want to call off the engagement, I'll throw this guy out right now and make sure he never gets anywhere in life. You think coming to apologize with a rod on your back is enough to make it all go away? In the end, I still shook my head. When Williams looked up at me from the ground, I turned my face away. No, I said softly, brother, I know my limits. My plan cannot fail. After my brother left, Williams remained kneeling with his head bowed. I couldn't remember how many times he had lost his temper with me because of Jennifer. Just ask him, why did you agree to get engaged to me? He thought for a long time. Without looking up, I thought this was what you wanted. I smiled silently. So, there hasn't been any progress at all, because as soon as they reunited, Jennifer had already fallen for someone else. His love for her was so cautious that even when she loved another, he willingly protected her and cleared the obstacles for her, all just so she could live well. As for everything else, he simply muddled through. Of course, that also includes the marriage with me. I remained silent for a long time before speaking again. Williams, can you like me a little, even just a little, so I can keep going? But what responded to me was still endless silence. Those harmonious days in Hawaii State feel like a distant dream now. In the end, I walked over and helped him up. Life went on like this. He remained at Jennifer's beck and call, and to avoid making her feel guilty and unwilling to call on him again, he continued to hide the fact that he had a fiancée. I gradually became obsessed with tending to flowers and plants, filling the yard with various blooms. One day, Williams came back from outside and, for the first time ever, said, "The peonies are doing well." I found it strange but still wore a gentle smile and said, "The other flowers are also doing well." He stood there for a while and, seeing that I had no intention of continuing the conversation, turned and went back to his room. My brother asked me, "He's always running out, always saying he's busy with official duties. Should I find you a handsome young gentleman?" I shook my head. "No, I will leave this place, and I shouldn't form any more bonds with others." After that day's argument, it was as if I had woken from a great dream, lying in bed all afternoon. I began to hold back again with Williams. I couldn't take back all my affection at once, but I was soberly aware that he was still the same stubborn person. While continuing to treat him well without showing any signs, I began to entertain other thoughts. Is it really only about sincerity? If it's this person, perhaps he doesn't deserve my sincerity. Before I could find the answer, the wedding arrived as scheduled. That year, I was 20 years old, and Williams was 18. He had already grown quite tall, and he awkwardly held my hand as we stepped out of the sedan chair and performed the wedding ceremony. That day, it was said that a young woman stood in front of the Yun residence, weeping loudly and demanding to see Lord Wei. The housekeeper drove her away, looking down on her with disdain. "There is no Lord Wei here, only the son-in-law of the general's household." She refused to give up, but was soon taken away by her family who had arrived. In the bridal chamber, Williams spoke again, his tone filled with apology. "Luna, I've wronged you." It was still abrupt and unclear. Before I could react, he suddenly took my hand and began wrapping a silk cloth around my palm, layer by layer. In the end, what I was left holding was a cold bamboo slip. It was the teaching tool that Mr. Williams first used to discipline him when he entered the white residence. But it was never actually used. He grabbed my hand and slapped it hard across his face. A red flush quickly spread across his fair, jade-like face. I let go, the bamboo strip fell onto the bed, and the silk quickly unraveled. "No heartache, it's a belated relief," I whispered. "How did it come to this?" He calmly replied, "You are my wife, I shouldn't have bullied you. I won't do it again." I reached out and touched his burning cheek, saying word by word, "I believe you." In the 3rd year of our marriage, he finally cut off all contact with Jennifer. Only the progress of the plan remained at a standstill, and now, Jennifer and Prince Chandler are deeply involved with each other, leaving no room for anyone else to come between them. Only I know that Prince Chandler is not the male lead, and the moment for the male lead's appearance came soon enough. This year's spring banquet is hosted by the princess. Both Jennifer and I are among the invited. For a time, rumors spread throughout the capital. Everyone knew that Crown Prince Chandler had recently been in close contact with the daughter of a low-ranking official. It was initially thought to be a fleeting romance, but no one expected the Princess Royal to personally send an invitation, asking her to attend such a noble banquet. among the speculations. There were even claims that Crown Prince Chandler intended to request her to be appointed as his consort. This is the second time I've seen Jennifer. Yet it's the first time I've clearly seen her appearance, petite and delicate, with a graceful figure and a delicate, pretty face. I vaguely recall that heavy rain in Hawaii State years ago, when I was young and full of admiration, yet lacked the courage to even catch a glimpse of the female lead. Now, I have finally seen it. She entered the hall with a stubborn expression, chest out and head held high, taking her seat. That was until the daughter of the Grand Tutor, who also admired Crown Prince Chandler, splashed wine on her clothes. She suddenly stood up, her expression stern, and publicly singled out the woman adorned in pearls and jade. The woman, furious and humiliated, pointed at her nose and insulted her, saying, "Who doesn't know that you, Jennifer, are shameless, pestering the prince, and as a result, you've waited in vain until you're 21 without even securing a title." I was watching these cliched scenes and was initially uninterested. But then I noticed that the wine had been splashed on her chest. Under Jennifer's thin clothing, a faint outline was already visible. I paused for a moment, then called for Lucy and quietly asked her to fetch a cloak from the carriage, but I never expected that before Lucy could even lift her foot, someone had already stepped forward from the men's side, holding the cloak. He walked closer and closer. I stared blankly in his direction. I watched helplessly as Williams, in front of everyone, draped the cloak I had brought out this morning over Jennifer's shoulders. The banquet hall fell silent for a moment. Many pairs of eyes turned toward me. I felt somewhat embarrassed and wanted to force a smile. I realized it had been a long time since I had genuinely laughed. In the end, it was not Williams, the minor official who had just entered the court, who protected Jennifer, nor was it Crown Prince Chandler. Instead, it was the Emperor, who had suddenly gone on an incognito inspection tour and had been hiding in the crowd, watching the drama unfold. Jenny looked over, their eyes met, and sparks flew instantly. This was the first meeting between the male and female leads. Under the glare of the spotlight, William's name was nowhere to be found. Only some discussions about his appearance remained. Under such overwhelming power and influence, even if he were as handsome as Pan Yu, he could only become a topic of after-dinner conversation. More widely circulated were the rumors about him and me. Everyone knew that the low-born son-in-law of the general's manor publicly humiliated the general's beloved daughter for the sake of another woman. But that was not the beginning, because Crown Prince Chandler did not appear in time, and the incident that day was caused by him. Jennifer held a grudge against him. However, Crown Prince Chandler, being of royal blood, was not only the biological brother of the current emperor but also the youngest son of the Empress Dowager. Since he had no hope of ascending the throne, he had been pampered since childhood. Even if he loved Jennifer deeply, how could he lower himself to apologize over such a trivial matter? Moreover, he believed that his late arrival that day was due to personally inspecting the Akeltec horse he intended to gift her on her birthday. And he saw no fault in that. Others admire him, but he is a married man. How could he possibly control that? Jennifer lost control and demanded to know, "You only know how to send horses, but when will you come to propose?" Prince Chandler, provoked by this questioning, grew angry and spoke without thinking. "If your father and brother weren't such hopeless messes, why would I have to work so hard to make up for your inadequate background?" Williams sat across from me and told me all this. Speaking of Jennifer's hardships, she had her heart broken. Meanwhile, I was distracted. My period didn't come this month, until I heard Williams say, "Jennifer might need to trouble me a few more times, as Prince Chandler has been pestering her." I suddenly came back to my senses. I said with a bitter tone, "That is Crown Prince Chandler, and you are only of the 7th rank now." Seeing his increasingly refined features as he grew older, I was momentarily speechless. For 3 years of marriage, I have taken meticulous care of him, from not being skilled at embroidery to personally taking his measurements and tailoring his clothes. Every inch of fabric on his body has been cut and sewn by my own hands. Every jade crown, every hairpin. If I didn't buy them myself, I made them with my own hands. When I was in school, I was never a particularly clever child. Before every exam, I had to diligently work through all the difficult problems over and over again, without any shortcuts. Even now, it's still the same. I thought that these subtle, unnoticed efforts would eventually bring me some kind of reward, but day after day, the system gave the same response: "Sorry, no progress." Still no progress. Williams is an emotionally extreme person. There will be no progress until there is a qualitative change. At this moment, it suddenly occurred to me, now, the female lead has already met the male lead, even though Williams is already somewhat different from the original book. He is now married, but he clearly has no affection for me at all. Can I really succeed? An unprecedented confusion kept me silent when he spoke again, saying he wouldn't implicate the general's mansion, as I hadn't quite caught his words, and he didn't say it again. I knew he had already made his decision. In just 2 months, trouble arose. Lucy rushed in a panic, lowering her voice as she said, "The young master has gotten into trouble again." Ever since that year when she witnessed Williams abandoning me to pick someone else up, this girl has held a grudge against him. Hearing her say this, I initially thought it wasn't anything serious, but then she dropped a bombshell. The young master has been detained by Prince Chandler at his suburban villa, and he's demanding that the young lady go to redeem him. She gritted her teeth and said, "You only know how to cause trouble for the young lady." I looked stunned, then quickly stood up. When I secretly arrived at the annex, Crown Prince Chandler was sitting in the main hall waiting for me, a faint, ambiguous smile on his face. Only when I got closer did I see the profound chill in his eyes. Before I could speak, the servant beside him, noticing his eyelids flicker, brought over a wooden chest and set it down heavily. It landed on the ground right in front of me. Lucy's face instantly turned pale with fright. Crown Prince Chandler raised his chin, his smile fading as he spoke in a sinister tone. "See what your general's fine son-in-law, my elder brother's loyal subject, has sent to my beloved." I then lowered my head to look. I was somewhat lost in thought. The first thing that caught my eye was a moheel, the very moheel I had spotted in Hawaii State when I was 16, the one I had missed out on. It turns out, Williams went back and bought it, but not for me. Would a woman like this? Of course, so he bought it and gave it to another woman. Even for a long time, I have been deeply concerned and often brought it up to him, yet he only remained silent. Moreover, among the fragments of the wooden box, there were countless exquisite hairpins, most of which were in the style of peonies. All these years, Williams has never bought me even a single wooden hairpin. His monthly salary, along with the money he earned from who knows where, was quietly handed over to me. Now it seems, it wasn't that he didn't understand. He was just repaying his debt to me. Prince Chandler, after venting his anger, turned and left in a huff. He neither tells me Williams' whereabouts nor decides my fate. I thought I wouldn't feel pain anymore, but the grievances I've suppressed over the years suddenly surged up, overwhelming me. Overwhelmed by anxiety and anger, I slowly slumped to the ground. A sharp pain erupted in my lower abdomen. A warm flow gushed down my thigh. Before I lost consciousness, I saw a remorseful figure rushing toward me. Lucy was screaming. I just closed my eyes. I lost our first child. For the first time, Williams was at a loss for words in front of me. Stammering, "I wasn't in the other courtyard. The prince had his suspicions and was trying to trick you." He rambled on for a long time. I tried my best to put on the gentlest smile and softly said, "It's okay," but he suddenly froze. His eyes quickly reddened as he whispered, "Luna, what's wrong with you?" I still shook my head gently and replied, "I'm fine. If my mother asks, just say you know nothing." He looked into my calm eyes, but suddenly his tone became intense. "I was wrong. You should hate me, scold me, or even hit me." Yet I only turned my head away wearily. Hearing him begin to mutter again, I don't know what came over me, but I truly only meant to repay a kindness. I touched my gradually numbing chest and breathed a sigh of relief. It's better not to have been born. If it were a daughter, she would likely follow the path of women in this world, either marrying early, serving her husband and raising children, enduring the pain of childbirth in this medically backward world, or being rejected by society and living a life of suffering. If it were a son, he would either inherit the white family legacy, go to battle, and shed blood for the sake of a book setting, or grow up to be a frivolous playboy, idling his days away. After this incident, Williams treated me much better, to the point of being considerate. I didn't ask what kind of feelings he had back then when he sent his beloved away from Hawaii State and returned once more. Was it for the support of the general's mansion, or to fulfill his promise to me? And whether he ever resented me, I just secretly told the system, "I'm in too much pain. If the strategy fails, will I die here?" The system remained tight-lipped, but its words struck me like a bolt from the blue. Host, you have already failed once. My whole body went stiff. The system paused briefly before continuing. When the 5-year deadline arrives, you will either be declared a failure and forcibly removed from this world, or you will receive an electric shock as punishment. It took the fall for me, and analyzed. You were too young when you came here. It's not your fault. I can't interfere with the main system's decisions, but I don't have a physical body, so there's no need to worry about side effects. You don't have to be afraid. My tears finally streamed down my face. I finally understand why the always responsive system was nowhere to be found during that time. Why, for so long, has no one told me how long the strategy's time limit actually is? In this unfamiliar world where I can never fully integrate, the system gradually became my spiritual comfort, until another plot point in the original story, the invasion of the Who people into J City, under the protection of 3 men, the female lead, Jennifer, successfully boards a ship heading to South Area. During this time, her relationship with the Emperor, who dispatched half of his personal guards to protect her, deepens, and their love is fully confirmed. Chandler, the Crown Prince and the female lead's first love, dies in this battle. At this moment, the system has already taken my place and endured 2 rounds of punishment, and I am pregnant again. This time, Williams did not abandon me. Over the years, the sincerity I once had for him has almost completely faded. Like every strategist, I have my own techniques and my own life. How to give, how to gain his guilt, how to make one part of what I've done appear as 10, the rest of the time was not wasted at all. Running charitable halls and establishing girls' schools made life quite fulfilling. Williams often looked confused. He whispered, "It shouldn't be like this." I pretended not to hear and instead asked innocently, "I heard that Miss Jennifer loves peonies the most. Williams, could you ask her if she'd like to add some new varieties?" I said naturally, "My greenhouse is full." But he suddenly grabbed my shoulders, his face pale and his lips trembling. In the end, he still didn't say a word. At this moment, holding my hand, he was already a high-ranking official of the 2nd rank. With a determined gaze, she looked directly at the Emperor and said, "Your Majesty, please allow your humble servant's wife to board this ship." However, aside from Jennifer, the ship was already fully occupied by the Imperial Guards. The Emperor's eyes were heavy, and the Empress behind him wore a look of restrained emotion. Just as he was about to speak, chaos suddenly erupted on the ship ahead. Someone shouted, "There are barbarians on board." The chaos spread like a plague, sweeping through everything around. This ship was no exception. Amid the crowd's shoving, someone screamed in terror. A few steps away, Jennifer, who had already boarded the boat, slipped and fell toward the bow, pushed by the crowd. At the critical moment, Williams let go of my arm and rushed forward, using the genuine skills taught by Master Wu. He grabbed Jennifer's hand in an instant, before I could even cry out. I could no longer withstand the pushing and instantly fell backward, tumbling down the stairs. I fell into the noisy crowd beneath the boat. Have I completely failed? I silently asked the system. Through my blurred vision, I saw my husband standing in place, not immediately coming over. I saw fear on his face. A few steps behind, my mother was calling my name. She is a general, destined to stay. Of all the people in the family, aside from my late grandmother, only I remain. It was Williams who vowed to send me away. She rushed over, her hands trembling as she picked me up. With a pair of bloodshot eyes, she looked at Williams and the bewildered Jennifer beside him. The chaos gradually subsided, and the Emperor remained silent. In the eerie silence, my mother spoke word by word, "Your Majesty, please allow me to divorce my daughter's husband on her behalf." But in the end, the leave was not granted. The Emperor did not give his approval. And my mother was eager to rush to the battlefield. In my current state, I was even less suited for a long journey. Williams stayed behind, taking me into the secret chamber of the general's residence. I never spoke to him again. On an ordinary late night, in the sweltering heat of summer, I woke up shivering once more and heard him muttering to himself. I really didn't want to. I thought of the coldness beneath his gentle facade all these years. Slowly, I closed my eyes again, in a half-dreaming, half-awake state. He came over and held my hand. After a brief pause, he covered me with another layer of brocade quilt. I don't know how much time had passed before we finally saw the light of day again. The Who people were driven out, my face pale. I sat beneath the corridor, listening to the steward speak of my family, They pursued the barbarians all the way to the far northern lands. Now, in the estate, only Williams and I remain. Every day, he personally prepares the meals and tends to my body. Day after day, in the midst of my silence, he would take the initiative to find topics and talk to me. When I grew too impatient to listen, I would simply ask, "How is Jennifer?" He would then temporarily fall silent. Occasionally, however, he would bring up Jennifer on his own. "I'm not with her the way you think anymore," he said. I nodded. "Of course not. All these years, you've been climbing so desperately, not to win her favor, but to make things easier for her. Once that person gets what they want, your life will instantly lose all meaning, ultimately leading you to your predetermined death." She is now 26 years old and unwilling to enter the palace as a concubine, facing endless criticism. Without the support of powerful officials, she would likely have been dealt with by the Empress's family long ago. The Emperor, after all, had long been confined to the inner palace, and Prince Chandler had long been forced into marriage, back in the spring banquet of that year. His own sister had invited Jennifer solely to vent her dissatisfaction with her. Later, when his elder brother also fell for the same woman, he lost all hope. He married a puppet princess and placed her in his manor, yet remained infatuated with Jennifer. The princess also had her own family. "Only I make my husband feel that no matter what, I could never not adore him." Therefore, for the woman who brought him home in his youth and saved him from a life of debauchery, he gave his utmost devotion. But despite all his calculations, he never expected that one day I would be completely disappointed. "I'm giving up on the conquest," I said to the system. "I'll trade my life for his." The one who saved me from being hit by a drunk driver is now lying in a hospital bed, unconscious. This is the reason I came to this world. The dynasty is thriving once again, since I attended several banquets and stuffed pastries into my mouth in public regardless of the occasion. Williams no longer allows me to go. Sometimes he would complain, "Why can't you just behave a little better?" I still refused to pay any attention. Later, Williams went on a trip to South Area, and before leaving, he asked, "Is there anything you want?" I shook my head. He forced a smile and asked me to wait for him to return. When he came back, he still brought many good things, mostly medicinal herbs and jewelry. He personally fed me those bitter medicines. In the rare moment of tranquility, I leisurely spoke, "Williams, I have written the divorce agreement." Almost at the same moment, the system's voice echoed in my mind. "Favorability 100%, congratulations on successfully completing the mission." I was taken aback and abruptly turned to look at Williams. He showed no reaction, and even smiled as he said, "Can you forgive me, or rather, could you, for my sake, stay?" He lowered his head and whispered, "I thought it would protect you." My expression stiffened, unsure of what had happened. The system seemed to sigh. "He can hear my voice. That's why I can't interfere." My mind went blank for a moment. I finally understood why everyone said Williams was hard to conquer. He was born with the ability to hear the system's voice. That's why they need a poor soul like me. His fate is unique. In the original story, the world collapsed after his death, so they found someone like me, not particularly clever and with no experience in winning hearts, to risk my life and offer genuine affection. All to win over the male lead who can control his favorability but can't change his inherent love for the female lead. After successfully completing the mission, I could have chosen to stay in this world until the end of my natural life. Williams knew it. Beneath his calm expression was an undeniable panic, yet all I asked of him was a mohole. Even if I searched every street in J City, it might still be impossible to find a mohole. Before he left, he said he was just going the same way as Jennifer. I smiled and nodded, saying I believe you. As soon as he stepped out the door, I got into the carriage. I hurried all the way to the ferry river, boarded the boat, and watched the riverbank fade into the distance. Someone is always a step too late. I can't wait to return to that civilized world. The sound of the bedside monitor still beeps rhythmically. My savior, a handsome young male college student, gradually opened his eyes. Her eyes are clear, sparkling with brilliance. Yet the moment she speaks, it feels all too familiar. "Pleasure working with you, Luna." I feel somewhat unfamiliar with all of this that should be familiar, my gaze fixed in a daze. He laughed until tears came out of his eyes. "This is a mission for both of us," he said. "We saved each other's lives and exploited the greatest bug in the world. I finally broke down in tears and couldn't help but hug him. Later, I heard that the world did not come to an end. Without the support of the second male lead, the female lead could only marry the male lead as a concubine, fighting fiercely with the Empress until she lost her initial innocence and faded from her protagonist aura. Throughout his life, the second male lead performed countless good deeds, all for the chance to see once more the person only he remembered. The main system, however, said without emotion, the opportunity to cross worlds is precious. Many people live their entire lives as good individuals and still never get such a chance. You can only catch a distant glimpse of her. Later, I neither knew nor cared whether he ever saw me. I got into university, and at the school gate, I saw that familiar face. Congratulations on starting your new life, Junior. The lifesaver who had been tutoring me just over a month ago smiled brightly and said this, while taking my luggage. This is the exciting life I was meant to have. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.